Last week, Congressman Josh Brecheen reintroduced the Healthy SNAP Act, a bill designed to limit the purchase of unhealthy foods throughout the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. Taylor Day has more.
The bill that was originally introduced in 2023 directs the Secretary of Agriculture to ensure that eligible foods align with nutritional science, public health guidelines, and cultural eating patterns. The Healthy SNAP Act aims to promote healthier food choices for over 42 million Americans currently relying on SNAP. Congressman Brecheen, who reintroduced the bill, believes the bill will reduce the country's growing health crisis, as nearly 75% of adults and 33% of children in the U.S. are either overweight or obese. Under the new legislation, soft drinks, candy, ice cream, and prepared desserts will no longer be eligible for purchase with SNAP benefits. In a statement posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, Congressman Brecheen said, "Our taxpayer dollars should not be allowed to be spent on junk foods that provide no nutritional value and contribute to America's obesity epidemic." Others agreeing with him, saying, "Our tax dollars should not go towards subsidizing junk food for SNAP recipients. And SNAP should just be a life vest and not a lifestyle." While others had different opinions, saying, "Why do we have to have rules for people who are already in vulnerable places? This is an abuse of welfare, and I hope it gets looked into." The bill also addresses taxpayer costs. Studies show that obesity-related diseases cost the U.S. healthcare system $400 billion annually, including significant spending in Medicaid, which covers 1 in 4 Americans. Congressman Brecheen argues that taxpayers shouldn't foot the bill for unhealthy food purchases that lead to expensive consequences. By restricting the purchase of sugary drinks and junk food, the Healthy SNAP Act seeks to improve nutrition for recipients and reduce long-term health care costs. This bill has not been enacted as a law yet, but for more information, visit our website at knoe.com. Mallory?